We've seen a number of streaming services come into our living rooms over the last decade, and soon Disney, Apple, and HBO will launch their own on-demand subscription platforms. With so many programming options available, how do people choose? And what are the implications of these consumer trends for today's market? I'm Alexis Garcia with Investors Business Daily, and joining me is Kevin Westcott. Kevin is chairman and head of the U.S. Telecommunications Media and Entertainment Practice at Deloitte, which publishes a yearly digital media trends survey. So Kevin, it's not really just Netflix and chill anymore. There's about 200 subscription services available. We're getting more in the next coming months. Is the consumer demand there to support all these services?
So what we see right now, there's actually over 300 streaming services in the U.S. today. And the average household has about 3 in the household. So clearly there's a proliferation of choice, and the consumers are in a position to try to figure out what really wants to drive them to those platforms. Now what we find is actually original content is one of the main drivers. People will subscribe to a new service for original content, but they need to have a very broad range of library content to keep the consumers. So I've started to see this reaggregation, where we're starting to put together multiple libraries of content into a single service, and that's really what consumers are looking for, is a place they can get the newest content, but also be entertained by some of the legacy content.
We've seen this term kind of pop up in the media about subscription fatigue. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and how this might impact these services moving forward?
Consumers definitely tell us that they're frustrated by having multiple subscriptions to get the content they want. They'd like to have less subscriptions. And many people will have much more than 3. That's the average in the household. I personally have 16. And that's because I wanted to
I need to get your password.
Need to test a little bit of everything. But what we find is the consumers basically tell us is that they feel this frustration, that especially when content leaves a platform. So I may be 2 seasons into a series, and all of a sudden it disappears. A lot of that is about these larger platforms are now reaggregating, bringing back their content into their platforms. So they're frustrated with that. But the amount of video they're watching continues to rise. The amount of video being watched today is higher than it's ever been in history. So I look at it as there's lots of choice, but the consumers they show some frustration, but also is a wonderful situation for consumers where they can find almost anything they want somewhere on these services.
We've seen companies like Netflix, like Amazon, they are burning through cash to produce these shows to get people to subscribe. So looking at these consumer trends, would that be a good model then moving forward?
So right now it's about a race to get as many subscribers as possible. You'll see all the new large platforms coming out with special offers or free offers to their to people with either subscriptions through them or other things. So it's about amassing the largest audience you can get right now, and expect that to continue for the next year. So original content's going to continue to be a driver of that. What I find fascinating is with the quality of the original content being produced today. We're seeing content being produced in ranges of what some theatrical films used to cost. So they're spending.
Right, and I feel like these studios are really going out and getting these top directors and producers to come to their platform and create these shows.
Absolutely. The last year we have a full year of information on this. There were more dramas greenlit for streaming services than there were for traditional television. So it is kind of a golden age of television in that space, and that is pulling consumers into these services. So I think that we'll see a massive grab for consumers, get as many subscribers as possible, but the real trick comes, can the platforms retain them over time? We know it's quite easy to defect from some of these platforms today, so they have to have a broad range of content and continue to refresh that content.
Is it really just coming back full circle to where cabling or cable packages will be the cheaper and easier option?
So I stray away from the word bundling, because bundling to me was being forced upon you. You had to buy 250 or 500 channels. Now you have incredible choice. So the consumers are back in control in this situation. So if I get a better deal by bundling a music streaming service and a gaming service with my video service, good for me. But if I don't need them all, I don't have to subscribe to them. So the idea of getting the old story of 500 channels with nothing to watch, well, now you get to pick what you actually want. So I think consumer choice is increasing significantly, and the consumers are the winners right now.
Yeah, and I think when investors look at this market and this group, the stereotype is that it's a lot of the young people that are cord cutting, but is that really the case? Is that what your research showed?
Well, it's interesting. So millennials were definitely the first ones who were kind of brought up digitally, and they were the first adopters of these things. What we've actually found, though, is that generation has, instead of changing as they got older, they influenced all the older generations. So they actually influenced the Gen Xers and the Boomers and others to actually adopt their styles. Now, when you say, is it also killing television? Well, over half the households in our research said they actually have both. They have a streaming service and pay TV, so they use it for different reasons. There's different experiences. The mobile experience is on streaming services. Sometimes to sit back, lean back, and watch the big screen in the living room, that's a pay TV experience. So it is going to become a situation where they decide what platforms make the most sense for the type of content I want to watch.
It's very interesting. And speaking of the mobile experience, is that the new frontier in all of this? As you know, we see 5G hopefully rolling out here pretty soon. What will that look like?
So the younger generation definitely has embraced mobile as a platform for watching video. Well over half of their time, video is actually on a mobile device. What I actually see that starting to do is creating new formats and new opportunities for content creators. We've always been locked into this 30-minute and 60-minute window to create content because it was on a broadcast schedule. We now have the opportunity to create all kinds of content lengths and formats because it's going to be consumed on mobile. It'll be consumed when you're commuting or on a break during work or through your lunchtime. So the content community actually has opportunities to create new content that's really focused first on mobile and thinking about how do I attract consumers on that platform as well.
Well, Kevin, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I'm Alexis Garcia for Investors Business Daily, and for more great content, click over to investors.com/videos.